Welcome back to Universe. I'm Andrew, and today I'm going to make a character for the new Marvel Multiverse Role-Playing Game. I've been reading it. I'm definitely not an expert, but I've read the first few chapters. There's not a lot of rules to it, honestly. In terms of rules, it's pretty light until you start getting to the actual powers. So about this much of the book is like different powers, and then all this red here, these are sample character profiles for all your favorite Marvel characters. And then there's some history in the back and some advice for GMs I haven't gotten to yet. So in terms of just like learning to play and the basics, there's really not a ton to it. So if you prefer a lighter rule system, this is probably going to work. The combat is definitely the most robust part. There's almost no rules for anything other than combat, other than like some basic skill checks as far as I could tell. I went over to my friend's house the other night to play board games, and we ended up playing an impromptu game of Marvel Multiverse instead, using the Mythic Game Master emulator. So the three of us, we played without a GM and we played without really preparing much. And we threw some characters together, basically characters who didn't have powers yet, but might manifest them throughout the story. And that's kind of what I wanted to do today as well. I'm going to make what's called a rank 1 character. The game goes up to 6 ranks. So just this sample spread here, you can see the average civilian is ranked as 1. In terms of the rules, I would actually say this character is probably like a rank 0, an average civilian, because they're missing a lot of things that even a rank 1 character would have. And in fact, you can see their ability scores are all 0s, but even a rank 1 character is going to have higher ability scores than that. So I would say the civilian here is rank 0. For example, over here, Baron Mordo is a rank 5. Captain Marvel is a rank 6, and we've got Cyclops as 4 and Daredevil as 2. So you might not agree with all of the assessments, but at the very least, there are a lot of different characters you can use for inspiration. You could even take one of the existing characters and just change a few things. For example, you might take Peter Parker Spider-Man, make him a teenager, let him turn invisible or something like that, and just call it a whole new character. I mean, I wouldn't do that, but one could. And here's Night Nurse, an actual level 1 hero. She showed up in some of the Netflix Marvel series. Moon Girl's a rank 2 for her intellect. So I'm going to do rank 1, but on top of that, I'm going to do it randomly. I don't know what my character is going to be like. I have the concept that this is a character who is just discovered or is first experiencing the development of their powers. So we'd start out by determining our character's rank, and the game is designed so that not all the players have to be the same rank necessarily. They can just be doing different things. But if you want everybody to kind of be in the same fight and have it be equally meaningful for everybody, it probably makes a lot of sense for everyone to be the same rank or close. And heroes don't necessarily level up the way fantasy heroes are often expected to. So the rules kind of tell you, well, maybe you should have an idea for your character's ultimate rank. And even if you start at rank 1, you know that you're going to stop at like rank 3 because that's about where your character is kind of meant to be. And once a character reaches rank 3, they don't continue necessarily leveling up and collecting new powers the way, again, a fantasy hero might. So keep that in mind. You don't have to level up all the way to rank 6 over the course of a campaign, for example, but you can. It is an option. It's just something that the players and group should discuss. For my character, I don't know what my character's power source is, what their powers are, or what their ultimate potential might be. So I'm going to leave that ambiguous for now and ignore this suggestion to have an idea of my character's ultimate rank or rank cap. And the next step is to determine ability scores. I'm going to be starting at rank 1. I know I'm making a rank 1 character today. And according to this ability scores table, at rank 1, I'm going to have 5 points and a default ability cap of 4. An ability score of 3 is like peak human potential. So if you put a 3, that's the best a human could do. A 0, as we saw with the average citizen, that's just an average score, would be a 0 all the way down. So I'm going to say my character isn't about to develop powers. Rather, they have already begun to experience some of their powers. So they already have a bit of heroism, or superhuman stuff going on. So I'm not going to be afraid to raise their ability score up to a potential of 3, but I do want to do it randomly. And again, everybody's starting at 0, and then with their rank 1 5 points, you can distribute those 5 points however you like. The ability scores are melee, agility, resilience, vigilance, ego, and logic, and they spell out Marvel, Marvel. And if you wanted an analog of other terms that could sometimes be used to describe these, melee might be strength, agility could be dexterity, resilience could be constitution, vigilance could be wisdom, ego could be charisma, and logic could be intelligence. And again, zeros plus 5 points, and I can make them go negative in order to buy extra points. So for example, if I put a -1 in logic, I would have a 6th point to spend in the other scores. I think the minimum is -3. But I looked through all of the characters in the book, and there's actually nobody who has a negative ability score. Even Drax has a logic of 0. So I'm not going to mess with negatives, I think. Although, I mean, it could make sense. I also do want my character's ability scores to work well with whatever powers they end up having. So I'm going to pencil in the numbers for now, but kind of be willing to adjust it later, I think. I think I'm going to say, I'm going to roll a d6. And here I have these 12-sided dice that are numbered 1 through 6 twice. So these are effectively d6. And I'm just going to say 1 through 6. The first one I roll is going to be a +3. So the 5th score, ego, is going to be a 3. The next one is going to be a 2. The 4th score, vigilance. The next one is going to be a 1, and I'll just re-roll if I do the same thing again. Second one there, agility, is a 1. And I spent 6 points there, so I'm going to assign a -1 to even that out. And here I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And melee is going to be a -1. And then resilience and logic will be zeros. And actually, I wrote those in the wrong boxes. I should have been writing them directly in this spot here, because this column is your defense score, which is just the same number plus 10. So this is from the top, melee would be a 9, 11, 10, 12, 13, and 10. Our damage rolls, there are damage rolls for melee, agility, ego, and logic, depending on what powers you have or what weapon you might be using. The multiplier here in this field is just your rank, and I'm going to be rank 1, which I should fill in. So I'm just going to put a 1 in all of those, plus your ability score. So for melee, I'm going to be -1, agility is +1, ego is +3, and logic is +0. I'm leaving some of the basic stuff like name, height, weight, eyes, etc. blank, because I kind of want to get an idea of what my character's stats and abilities are before determining that. We also want to do our backstory and then our powers. A couple more things are our initiative modifier, size, and speed. I'm going to leave size. It's assumed to be average, so I'm just not going to fill it in because we might need to change it. Although for my character concept, I don't think I want to change it, but I'm going to wait and see what the powers are. Initiative is equal to your vigilance. So our vigilance is 2, so I'm just going to put a 2 here in initiative modifier. And some of this seems redundant, but some abilities or things might change some of these numbers without changing the others. And our speed is 5 spaces, or about 25 feet, plus 1 for every 5 points in agility, but our agility is just 1. So it's just going to be the basic speed of 5. And that's the run speed. And I guess I'm kind of jumping around, but our health and focus are 30 times resilience and vigilance respectively. So resilience is actually 0, so we do 30 times 0 is 0, but there's a minimum of 10. So we just have a basic low health of 10. Vigilance, though, we have a 2 times 30 is 60. And that's kind of like our physical health and our mental health. Run out of health, you get unconscious. Run out of focus, and you are disoriented. And some abilities require that you spend focus. So having that bigger focus is nice. Obviously, bigger health would be nice too. But all right, and here we've got the origins page. And this is definitely very much themed to Marvel specifically. You've got things like Shi'ar, Atlantean, Kree, Mutant, Asgardian, Olympian. Spirit of Vengeance is very specific. Symbiote, weird science. So yeah, very Marvel themed origins rather than just saying things like tech, science, mutant, alien, magic. All right, there are exactly 30 origins here, and I'm tempted to just roll origins. I mean, my first instinct was to say mutant because X-Men are always my favorite, but I kind of did that in the other game with my friends the other day, so I'm feeling frisky, and I want to roll a 30-sided die. Now, I don't have a 30-sided die, but I can make one. I'm going to use the D6 as a D3, so 1 or 2 will be 1, 3 or 4 will be 2, and 5 or 6 will be 3. And then this D10 will be 10, and I will add the 10 to the 10's place. I guess if I get above 30, I'll just subtract 30, though. And yeah, 5 or 6 is 3, so this is a 37. We only have 30, so I'm going to subtract 30 and get number 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. My character is an Eternal. a member of Homo Immortalis, a variant race of humanity created by the Celestials. They are scattered across Earth, but their headquarters lie in the city of Olympia, high in the mountains in Greece, and folded into an echo dimension. Some live on Titan, a moon of Saturn instead. The Eternals live by 3 principles: protect the Celestials, protect the machine, a sentient AI deeply connected with the Earth, correct excess deviation. Only 100 Eternals were originally created, and only 2 have been born since, Thanos and Eros. The character is either one of the lesser-known 100 or a new Eternal brought to life through extraordinary means. Through a ritual usually initiated by the Prime Eternal, their official leader, Eternals can be called to be part of a collective being known as the Unimind. So, of course, there was the Eternals movie. They definitely changed some of the lore around, and I'm not an expert on the Eternals. I've read some of their good books. Of course, I watched the movie, but that doesn't count for this setting necessarily. You might have mentioned or noticed that we read the name Thanos there. In Marvel Comics, Thanos is an immortal or an Eternal, which obviously in MCU that is not the case. And their suggested occupation, which is one of the next steps, is outsider. I'm gonna go with it. So our character is probably a newly born Eternal, and we don't know how or why, and I'm going to assume my character also doesn't know how or why, or even necessarily that's what's going on. So origin is Eternal. And yeah, next up is occupation. So I was thinking my character would be like a kid, and so probably a student is the most obvious. Outsider, though, is the recommended for the Eternal. The character comes from another planet, dimension, or time, and is not familiar with how things work on this Earth. They may have had another occupation where they came from, but it's not applicable here. No, I think my character is newly born and just now realizing their Eternal status. So let's go with student. Examples of student are Moon Girl, Ms. Marvel, Spider-Man, Miles Morales. The character attends school or college. What they study or focus is up to them and their school. All right, and they get the tags. So tags, actually I'm still a little fuzzy. There's tags and there's traits. Some of them have rules and some of them don't. So student, tag, mentor. So I guess our character is going to have a mentor and obligation of school. Makes sense. And then for a trait, we have quick learner. So not all kids learn just as quickly as others, but I think it makes sense that a lot of students are, young people have that more open mind to learning. And if for some reason you want to play a student who wasn't good at learning, you could pick something else. A quick learner is actually has an ability. It says if the character fails an action check, they gain an edge on the check if they try the same action again on their next turn. So if you kind of double down on what you want to do, you get an edge, which is basically a reroll on your dice check. I haven't talked about how the game actually works yet, so I can do a very basic rundown, which is that you're going to take 3d6. Again, these are dodecahedrons, but they're functionally 6-sided dice, and you'll roll 3 of them. One of them needs to be a different color, and you add them up. And in this case, I got a 3, 4, 5, 6. You would add a relevant ability score based on what kind of check you're doing. And that's the short version. So if I had an edge, I could choose one of these dice to reroll, and I might choose this 2. And you might wonder why I'm not rerolling the 1. And that's because in this game, the middle die, specifically the odd one out, the red one, the 1 is actually considered a fantastic result. A Marvel logo is what the rulebook assumes you're using a die that says Marvel on it, on that face. And it actually counts as a 6. And it makes your result into a fantastic result. So the 1 on the red die is actually a good thing. But yeah, so an edge would just be 1 reroll on one of the dice that you choose. So I'm going to write a quick note for quick learner. Fail, try again with edge next turn. And that is a trait, a label that has a game mechanic associated with it. Some are minor powers or abilities. You can get one as part of your origin or occupation. And as an extra trait, you get 1 extra trait for every rank you have. And since I'm rank 1, I get 1 extra trait. So let's roll for another one. There are 57. I already have 1, so that's like 56. So let's roll out of 60. I got a 53. That is actually stranger. Character doesn't understand local customs. They have trouble on checks made when trying to decipher such things or when trying to pass themselves off as a local. So maybe my character is more Eternal than I thought. I want to write stranger down. I wonder what's going on here. And I'm realizing Eternal itself as the origin also had some tags. Eternally immortal, and Mod Weary, which I don't know what that means. Eternally Immortal says the character does not age and could theoretically live forever. If they're killed, they can be brought back in an activation chamber found in the Exclusion, an internal base located beneath the South Pole. To make this happen, the activation chamber sacrifices the life of a random human anywhere on Earth. Rough. And Mod Weary, I don't know what that means or how to pronounce it, but the character lives for so long that their accumulated memories have the potential to drive them insane. The only cure is to die and be reborn with a restoration of their mind for a clean backup. This happens rarely, but the disease can progress quickly when it starts. So maybe my character is recently reborn from one of the other Eternals, either due to having died and been reborn, although that would happen in the chamber itself, I believe. So I would have woken up in the North Pole, or via this ritual, the Modwiri ritual. But regardless, I think that brings us through some of the basic stuff and into the powers section. When you create your own superhero, the character rank tells you how many powers you can pick. For each rank, you can pick 4 powers. We're rank 1, so we can pick 4. If you use powers from fewer sets than your rank, you get a bonus power. The way it's written, technically, if you chose powers from 0 power sets, there are powers that are not part of any power sets, and 0 is fewer than 1. So if you were to pick 4 powers that don't have power sets, you would get a thematic bonus of a 5th power. I don't know if it's meant to work that way, but it is worded that way. So gauge that how you will. I don't think I'm going to try to use that anyway. But I think it'd be more like if you were rank 2 or higher, or it uses an example. Spider-Man only uses basic powers and powers from the Spider Powers set. This gives him 4 minus 1. He's rank 4. He only uses a single set. 1 is fewer than 4, so 4 minus 1 is 3. That's how many extra powers he gets. So instead of the normal 16 powers for being rank 4, 4 powers per rank, 4 times 4 is 16. There is a lot of multiplication in this game, by the way. Plus 3 makes 19 powers. So Spider-Man has 19 powers because he picks from the thematic spider set, which is hilarious because they made the spider set around the fact that Spider-Man has all these abilities. But nonetheless, that is how the system works. I'm going to go one at a time on my 4 powers and make it kind of random. These are the power sets: Elemental Control, Illusion, Magic, Martial Arts, Melee Weapons, Omniversal Travel, Phasing, Plasticity, Power Control, Ranged Weapons, Resize, Shield Bearer, Shield, Spider Powers, Super Speed, Super Strength, Tactics, Telekinesis, Telepathy, Teleportation, and Weather Control. There is a description of each of the power sets as you get introduced to them over these few pages. And then the next few pages have the full sets written out, each power set with all of the powers available. And then once you get past those few pages, it starts writing out the rules for every single individual power. So I think what I want to do is randomly choose a power set. Although there's also the basic powers, which are, as far as I can tell, only listed as a group over here. So there are 20 here, plus the basic powers, so 21 categories. Couldn't have just been 20. So I got to roll a D21. So I'm going to use the D6 as a D3 and the D8 as a D7. I'll have to re-roll 8s. 2 on the D3 means a 1, and 1 is just 1. Let's just multiply these. 1 times 1 is 1. So that's the first power here. I think the basic I was considering that to be last. So Elemental Control is going to be my first power. Oh, and I guess I have to choose an element for this one as well. Air, earth, electricity, energy, fire, force, hellfire, ice, iron, sound, or water. And that is 11 options. So I'll roll a d12. 5 is fire. All right, straightforward. So now we know we can manipulate fire, and let's see how we can manipulate fire. Problem is, some of these have prerequisite ranks. For example, Supernova requires that you have the elemental blast power and rank 4. And actually, there is no choice. Following the rules for the prerequisites, the only power available is elemental burst. And in fact, here is the elemental control table in the back of the book. They actually have like kind of flow charts or tech trees of these power sets. You can see elemental burst is at the top there. It's required for everything else going down. So I guess we're getting elemental burst with fire. The character fires a burst of their element, fire. Power set elemental control prerequisites none. Action standard. Duration is instant. The range is 10 spaces, about 50 feet. The character makes a range attack against an enemy in line of sight. The attack is a success. It inflicts regular damage. On a fantastic success, the enemy takes double damage instead. and the elemental type's special effect. And the special effects are back in this page here. Fire says set the target ablaze, and ablaze is over here in the combat rules, the condition summary. Characters can be set on fire by all sorts of things. An ablaze character loses 5 health at the end of each of their turns until they die or the condition ends. Characters can also use water, fire extinguishers, or other methods to put it out. Anyone, including the victim, can smother the fire by rolling or letting themselves be rolled on the ground. This requires an action to make a successful agility check against a target number of 10. It's up to the narrator whether or not a character or item is actually flammable in any particular situation. And of course it says that's on a fantastic success, the enemy takes double damage, and the element type special effect. So back to the roll, fantastic success would be if the Marvel die came up as a 1, the value is actually a 6, and that would make it fantastic. And if it's a success, a fantastic success, so you still have to be able to hit. You can have a fantastic failure, but on a fantastic success, that's when we do double damage and set them ablaze. The check itself is a ranged attack, which if I recall correctly means we would be rolling using our agility score. So if I'm going to be shooting elemental blasts and hitting, I need my agility to be a bit higher. Right now it is a 1. So the way that would work would be I would roll these and add 1 to the total. 4, 7, 10 plus 1 is 11. Does 11 hit against the target's difficulty. Then if it did damage, we would take the Marvel die, in this case a 3, and multiply it by my damage modifier. In this case, it would be my agility. My agility is, well, I'm rank 1, so it's agility, well, 1's all the way down there, so you just take the 3, multiply it by 1, and it is a 3 plus 1, and it would be 4 damage for a weak little elemental burst. All right, so my first ability here, elemental burst, fire. It doesn't actually list a cost. So like I said, some abilities, some powers cost focus. This one does not. Page number 95. Summary is ranged and a fantastic double and ablaze. It's a standard action. All right, 1 power, 3 to go. And if I were making this character the normal way, I'd probably just check this chart here. Oh, there's actually no other elemental powers I can take. Everything else requires rank 2 or even 3. And we're not quite there yet. And when we do hit rank 2, we can choose 4 more powers. So there's no use saving a power necessarily. So since I know I cannot take an elemental control power, I'll just roll a d20 because elemental is ineligible. Number 2, so we're skipping elemental, so after illusion is magic. Magic doesn't have any tech tree, but there are a lot of requirements. I guess just none of them are requiring any other specific powers. They just require ranks and certain tags. So everything in the sorcery set requires that you are sorceress. Basically, you need to have studied. Demonic requires that you are cursed. Magic requires that you are chaotic. And then there's this no set. And they all have rank requirements except for 3 of them. And that is Sense Sins, Penance Stare, and Sense Supernatural. All right, I'm going to roll a d3 here. 3 is the third one, which was Penance Stare, which requires the curse tag, because this is basically a Spirit of Vengeance, a Ghost Rider thing. So again, this is very much Marvel themed. If you wanted to drop some of the Marvel requirements, you might say, oh, my character has the ability to do something like a Penance Stare without necessarily invoking one of those demons. I'm having trouble finding it explicitly stated, so I'm not totally confident, but I think I can just choose to take tags. Traits were 1 per rank as a bonus. You also can get them as part of an origin or occupation. Tags don't really say. It says there's no limit to the number of tags a character can have, but it also doesn't say you can just choose to take them freely. So I'm just going to go ahead and say that I do have the curse tag so that I can have this penance stare that I rolled up. Willingly or not, the character is affiliated with hell. This can open them up to all sorts of nefarious plots and plans. So again, very Marvel theme integrated in the powers here. We'll read penance stare in a second, but I can't imagine that it's so powerful that they have to balance that through story means. It's probably just because of the penance stare is a Ghost Rider thing, and Ghost Rider is cursed and hell related, and so they just tied it all together. That's fine. Our character is now cursed. I guess I should check if there's any more I want. Oh, for being a student, I did have a mentor. The character knows an older person they can ask for advice, even when it comes to having superpowers. And mysterious. The character does not entirely understand how or why they have powers. It can prove unsettling and perhaps even dangerous, or they can just take it in stride. that's part of my concept. I wanted that. So even though that we're finding out that our character is an Eternal, I still think that I'm going to take this tag. It doesn't really do anything. I guess it's more of a guidance for the story, for the narrator. But I'm going to say our character still doesn't know. And young. The character is a minor, under 18. If possible, they must report into their parents or guardians. And I did kind of imagine that our character is in that situation. I'm not sure how well that's going to match up with the whole Eternal heritage, but for now, that was my concept. All right, Penance Stare. The character can punish the wicked with their gaze. Standard action, instant duration. The character makes an ego attack, which is nice. Our ego is 3 against target character within 3 spaces per rank, so 15 feet for now. If it's success, the target takes focus damage, and that the damage to their focus value would be based on our attack roll, which was ego, which is a +3, which is nice. It's still a 1 multiplier because our rank is 1. On a fantastic success, the target takes double damage and is paralyzed. Characters with the heroic tag. Oh, so heroic is another tag that you can choose to take for free, basically just saying, I want to be a superhero. I'm like Captain America, Iron Man, whatever. It's implied that you want to do heroic things, and you don't generally, you're trying to avoid killing people. So heroic is probably the most important tag in that sense. Like, do you want to be heroic or not? For now, I'm not going to take heroic because my character is still kind of learning and figuring out things. But characters with heroic take half damage from this power. If the target is shattered by this power, they can recover. Shattered, I believe, was the equivalent of dead, which is your focus value as a negative. So our focus is 60. So if we got knocked down to -60, we would be shattered. Whereas if that happens with your health, you would be dead. But it says they can come back in one of 2 ways. Either they are cleansed of their sins and ready to make a new start with a clean slate, or their emotions are drained from them permanently. So the rules actually say that a lot of, by default, like a normal human, normal civilian who is shattered would just never be able to recover. Obviously, we're playing with super people. They can recover from even being shattered or dead. But Penance Stare specifically, I think it's giving the option that they are not able to recover, or they do recover but are cleansed of their sins, and basically you got to convert them to good guys, I guess. So Penance Stare from Magic, still no cost. Ego, 15 feet. To change that if I rank up. And we'll say fantastic, X2 damage, and paralyze. I'm not going to write down the rest of that. Well, heroic characters would be halved, which could be relevant depending on how the story goes, if there's ever a story. But it's also a standard action. All right, I think the Fireball, the Elemental Blast, and the Penance Stare are working together thematically, even though they're from different power sets. It's a little bit cobbled together, like we're an Eternal with magic powers. I mean, Eternals could theoretically have elemental powers, but the cursed part is a little bit weird. And then there's like that kind of thematic association between the fire and the Penance Stare, but the Penance Stare doesn't connect thematically to the Eternal origin. So yeah, we're a little cobbled together, but I'm still going to roll up a random 3rd power. We could still get another power from the magic set. There were 2 more possibilities, so I'm going to keep that as an option here as I roll a d20. Number 1, rolling low, so we're just going to skip elemental control because that one is off limits now. There's nothing left for us there, but illusion is next. Illusion only has 1 power available. Everything else is locked behind illusion or a higher rank, or locked behind illumination specifically. The character creates a bright light. Standard action. Duration is concentration. Concentration means that it lasts for as long as you concentrate on it, and you can concentrate on as many things as your rank. So at rank 1, we can maintain 1 concentration ability or power at a time. If you if your focus is dropped to 0 or less, you lose concentration. The character illuminates 1 object or point in line of sight within 50 spaces, 250 feet, with bright light. Character can maintain concentration on the effect even if they move out of range or line of sight. I mean, mechanically, these are all disconnected, but they do kind of feel like they could be part of a power set. This is kind of funny. It says, illuminate a point or object within line of sight. But if it's dark, then would you have line of sight to something you can't see? But you want to be able to see it, which is why you want to illuminate it. I wonder if the rules about darkness say you don't have line of sight, which means you can only brighten things you can already see. I'm just going to assume it means there's nothing physically blocking you, or you can imagine where you might want it to be. So I'm really liking the random, although I think it'd be totally legitimate at this point. I mean, you can just make up every decision all the way through. But even if you want to do it randomly, I feel like at this point we kind of have a handle on what's going on. And you could just take the static illusion ability, or I don't know what it does. But that's part of the illusion tree if you want to dig into that a little deeper. If you wanted to do more magic, you could take Sense Supernatural or Sense Sins. If you wanted to lean into the demonic set for Sense Sins. Can't do elemental control any deeper still for now. I actually wonder if you can save powers. Like if you went to rank 2, I didn't read any rules that say you have to take each power as though you were like ranking up one at a time. Like theoretically, if I started a character at rank 3, which is totally allowed, could I just take elemental burst and then like a bunch of these higher ranked abilities and basically only have one rank 1 legal power? Because I'm starting at rank 3, I can just not have 3 more? I don't know. I think that's allowed. So maybe saving a power does make sense, but I don't want to. And I still want to do it random. So D20 again it is. A 10. Something different. Skipping elemental control be 1, 2, 3, 8, 9, 10 is resize. Well, here's where we deviate. All right, the resize tech tree. We've got grow 1, which is a prerequisite for grow 2, also growing attack. Everything else is, there's also shrink. So shrink 1 is a prerequisite for shrink 2, shrinking dodge, a bunch of other stuff. So we either take grow 1 or shrink 1. 50-50? I kind of like the idea that my character can grow. Maybe it's like a demonic thing, like they can turn into a demonic form, but I don't want to drop the random now. Let's make it 50-50. High or low on a D6. High is big, obviously. 4 is going to be embiggening. Grow 1. The character sizes up. Power set is resize. Action is a standard or reaction. So you can do 1 reaction per round. So the trigger is if you're attacked. So you can either do it as a standard action or as your reaction when you're attacked, you grow. Character can grow up to huge size. They can return to their normal size at will. Row 1. Resize. Standard or reaction. Permanent duration. Be huge as reaction when attacked. So now we get to talk about size a little bit. The character size determines how large they are compared to an ordinary person. Most characters are average. Certain powers or traits can lead to a character being bigger or smaller. The bigger they are, the faster they move, and the easier they are to hit. And then the smaller is the inverse. And over here is the objects and sizes chart. So you can see average right here in the middle, 6 feet. An adult. Small is 4 feet, big is 8 feet. Examples for small, child. Examples for average is adult. Average, or example for big is car. And the examples all the way from microscopic up to gargantuan are ant, gaming miniature, brick, cat, child, adult, car, truck, airliner, cruise ship, skyscraper. So we get a little bit of a drastic curve there at the end. So the bigger you are, you get a bigger attack modifier. So if we become huge, we actually get a +2 attack modifier. Although I think that would be for melee attacks. Your damage multiplier becomes +2. Oh no, this is for objects specifically. So this is rules for if you're throwing something at somebody, or like if you're mighty and you can lift a car and swing it at somebody, you can hit 2 people instead of 1, and your damage modifier becomes +1 if it wasn't already. And you get a +1 more to your attack modifier. So that's for objects. And I guess this is the size section. A character can carry anything their own size or smaller. So the game doesn't necessarily use your strength score or your melee score to determine how much you can carry. It's just if it's the same size as you, you can carry it. So if you're an adult, you can carry another adult. If you're a child, you can carry another child. And certain abilities will say like, oh, you can carry things as though you were certain number of sizes bigger. And that's kind of the way of saying that you are stronger. One of the tags, I think, or traits or something is that you are out of shape. And that makes you carry things as though you were one size smaller, for example. So you're an adult who would not be able to carry another adult. You'd only be able to carry a child, for example. So that's kind of how the weight and carrying system works. So now that we can become huge, we can carry other huge things like a truck. And that would make us 24 feet high. That's actually the resize section, specifically the power set section. The resize 73 has the more rules about resizing. In this little resize effects table, we can grow 1 to huge size, 24 feet high, which gives us a -2 defense modifier to our melee and agility defenses. So if we were huge, the melee defense would change from 9 to 7, and agility would change from 11 to 9. But of course, our damage multiplier would change to +2. Currently, our damage multiplier is a 1. So I think that makes it into a 3. So we do a lot more damage if we punch somebody when we're big. I think that +2 also applies to the attack roll. So if we make a melee attack roll, it would normally be the 3 dice -1, but now it would be +1 because -1 +2. And then that also becomes a multiplier from 1 up to 3, I think. I'm not going to dig into that now. And I think it also makes us move a little bit faster. Thematically, that just makes sense. You walk farther when your legs are longer. But yeah, there's some rules and guidelines for what to do when you're a different size, either smaller or bigger. But that will finish up our character. Ooh, actually, I don't think the rules necessarily handle this. Maybe there's some special feature that would. But like I said, my idea was that I have this demonic form when the character grows. Actually, there is a tag for alternate form. So if you're someone like Colossus, who has the organic steel form, or his human form, his powers only work in organic steel form, you could do this alternate form tag that kind of describes that transition. There's no real rules. It's just an optional restriction you can give to yourself because you think it's cool. But I think my character can use their other powers regardless of form. So that's not what I'm looking for. I guess it would be extreme appearance. This character looks very different from the average person and cannot easily hide their identity. When this tag appears in Origins in this chapter, it may give other useful information like whether an extreme appearance is common. So maybe the character has an extreme appearance in biggened form. But yeah, it doesn't really have any special rules. It's just you can't hide your identity. Although in this case, it's kind of doing exactly that. It is hiding their identity because if they're big, they look different than when they're small. I'm going to write extreme appearance when big just because I like that idea. And I guess I should determine some other basic features. I'm going to do a gender role. 1 through 4 will be a guy, 5 through 8 a girl, 9 or 10 non-binary. 9 is going to be a non-binary character. Their size is average. I'm going to say they're not, I mean, I did put that they're young, but I don't think they're enough through puberty that they're big enough. I was going to roll a random age, but I think the age has got to be just about, I mean, they're eternal, so theoretically they're thousands of years old, but or they're newly born. We're not 100% sure yet. They're either newly born, eternal, in which case they might actually be just a teenager, or they're a reborn version of a previous Eternal who's kind of struggling with some memory issues, and they might just think that they are a teenager. I'm just going to add a d6 to 13. So 3 is 16. There's actually not even a space for age. I guess superheroes don't have ages because they exist in comics indefinitely. And the Mythic book actually has a bunch of tables in the back. I don't know if this is going to work, but I'm going to roll on the character appearance. I don't think this is really how it's meant to be used, but this is a D100. I got a 91, which says this character is tall. All right, I can do tall. Let's roll again. I want some more. 16 is common looking. Tall for a 16-year-old, I don't know, 6'2"? What does a 6'2" teenager weigh? 140? I honestly have no idea. That would be pounds. And because I rolled common, I'm just going to say brown hair, brown eyes. Those are common features. All that's left is a name. Oh, a distinguishing feature. But if they're common looking, maybe they don't have a distinguishing feature necessarily other than the height. So we'll leave that. I'm going to use my syllables chart to make a name. Basically, I'm going to roll a D100 for a syllable along with a D6. The D6, I'll add the number of previously generated syllables, and if it is 6 or more, I stop. 3 means we're going to have another syllable. 68 is Pel. We roll again. 4 plus 1 syllable is 5, so we're going to roll again. 24 is E, Pelly. And a 6 plus 2 is 8, which is 6 or more, so this is it. 78 is Says. Pelly Says. Maybe they've given themselves some kind of nickname. Sezzy Pel, mixing around the syllables a little bit. Maybe Sezzy is some kind of nickname, and that's what they go by. Sezzy, S-E-Z-Z-Y. Last name Pell, P-E-L-L. Sezzy Pel. Obviously, that's not their code name, but they don't have a code name because they're just trying to figure out who they are. Just a student who can all of a sudden turn into a giant demonic form, make people face their sins, create bright lights, and of course, shoot fire. So that is my randomly generated Marvel Multiverse Role-Playing Game character. Maybe make your character up by just deciding, but I'm not unhappy with what I came up with. So thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and bye.